Hey everyone, welcome to the ColorByFeliks podcast. This is part two of the family talk, and we're just gonna go ahead and have you, Sebastian, ask some more questions.
Cool. Yeah. So we're just answering questions that were submitted by you guys. Thanks for submitting those. We're actually answering them on the same day that you submitted them. So thanks for
Okay.
coming through. And yeah, we just want to try to give you guys as much value and as many lessons as possible for wherever you are in your art, whether you're doing it casually or trying to build a business or you're already successful. I think you'll find something here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get started. So the next one that people wanted to know is, how did you discover your art style? And I think that maybe answered in a way that they can, for people who maybe feel that they still haven't discovered theirs. How do you go about that?
Mhm.
And this is
On
asked, sorry, this is asked by Aria.
Okay. All right, Arya. So honestly, like to this day, I don't think I've found my style yet. I'm still exploring, trying things and experimenting. And I don't know. I don't know if I ever will. I maybe one day I will, but I don't feel like I have. That's
Mm.
my situation. I'm just speaking from my experience. Sure, there was seasons where I felt leaned onto, like, let's say, more colorful things and shapes, and I do like a few paintings because in that moment I felt kind of, it was exciting for me in the moment. And I think from my experience, what I've learned is actually just sketching and creating, and whatever gets you excited, that excitement again, like, ooh, this could be kind of fun. I want to try that, implement that into a piece of artwork, and then just do it until that like naturally fades out, and then go back to your sketchbook and then sketch again, and then however you do it, or if you have to go out in nature or other galleries, look at other people's artwork, read books, get this again, this little spark. And it, whatever, it could be like 3 paintings, it could be 4, it could be 5 paintings, but it's like it creates a series. That's what's happening with me right now. I don't have like a specific thing that I focus only on. I'm open to having it naturally lead the way, and I'm just seeking for that like spark and excitement on a specific area, and then I just implement that to whatever I'm creating. And so I think the best way to do that, honestly, is just by painting and creating as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
You'll then, it'll naturally, for some people, it just naturally just happens. They find their style and they're happy to stick with one specific thing, and they just create it and get better at it, and just kind of keep doing it. And honestly, the best way I would say is just never stop creating, painting.
Yeah, that's smart. So you're saying that maybe if you stop to think about it too much, it's almost like you're putting yourself in too small of a box.
Yeah.
If you said, this is the style that I'm going for, and like you're deliberately like taking notes on that style as you go, and how do I develop this specific style, that's almost like too limiting.
Yeah. So if you don't know your style,
Uh-huh.
I'm in the same boat. I would encourage you, just start with thinking what you're like, what is that thing that gets you a little bit excited to create more than usual, and just lean onto that feeling and kind of work on it
Mm-hmm.
until it fades, and then you'll find another feeling and then lean onto that.
Now, is that your goal at all, is to find your own style, or is that something you just don't even really care about and you're like at peace with not having a style per se?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked, because in the beginning, when I first started, I thought I needed to find a style. Like I thought I need to have a specific style, and I was so focused on that I was confused and like distracted. But when I let go of
Like,
that,
where does that even come from,
yeah.
right? Like, why is it that artists think that they have to have a style? That's very interesting. It's like it kind of reminds me of like when kids are like 18 and they tell you like you have to figure out what you want to be for the rest of your life and go to college.
Yeah.
It's like who decided that, and why do you have to know exactly your style or what you want to be for the rest of your life?
Here's an interesting thought based on what you just said, and I don't know if this is true, but I just want to float it out there and see what you guys think. Is it possible that we are all so trained by capitalism?
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
not here to say one way or the other that capitalism is evil or not. I think there are a lot of bad things that come with it, but there's some good things too. But do you think that we're also trained by that we're bringing marketing into our artistic lives, you know, because
Mm.
we realized that, oh, if I have a distinctive style that people can connect with my name, then it'll help me move more pieces, you know.
I
Mhm.
think that that's the narrative that like the art world taught artists, you know.
Mm,
um I don't know. That's why I say that like I feel like it's not necessary anymore, you know, because I feel like it's almost, and Felix and I talk about this sometimes. We're like, isn't it interesting that like artists are like told that they need to have a style or be a certain way? And who's telling them this? And like, isn't that the opposite of being creative? Is like saying like, this is what you create and this is only what you can create.
right.
So actually, when we came here to Washington, I saw we met up with one of my old friends I grew up with, and he is a great drummer. I mean, he plays drums like he's one of the best drummer I know, you know, growing up, and he's amazing. So
Mhm.
Brian, if you're listening, you better, you know, thank me after this. But you are amazing, and so like he's just great. But recently he told me, because I asked him, hey, how are you still playing drums? He says he's been trying something else and he's playing bass right now. And I'm like, oh wow, that's unusual. But it got me shocked, you know. I then leaned on to his conversation and was more interested. Wow, that's kind of cool. That's unusual, you know. You've been playing bass or drums for so long, and now you're doing bass, and he's
Yeah.
interested in that, and that's cool. Is so should I, in my position, be like, no, 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 you cannot play bass. You can only play drums because you're good at it. Do not play bass. You don't have the right, you know? No, actually, for in my position, I was more excited. I was more leaned into his story and like, whoa. So how did that happen? How did you get that click? And what made you go that route? That's pretty cool that you're experimenting and trying different instruments. You know, it's in the same musical kind of area, but he's trying different things. You know, and he's
Right.
exploring, and it's pretty interesting story. It makes it interesting. You know,
Mhm.
because I feel like even in returning to the art stuff, like if I were to focus on one style and post the same style of recording and the way I'd edit and everything, just kind of the same thing. And sometimes I still kind of keep the same like way of recording, but certain things I change over the years. And if I kept the same thing, I feel like people would get so bored, even though they're like, "Oh, he's good," but it gets boring after a while, you know? Things change, always change.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we are as artists anyways, that we are people who like to push boundaries and explore new frontiers. And so to put a limit on yourself, it's almost going against your nature as an artist.
Mhm.
And that's what I'd be really curious about is like, could you go far enough back in time to a place where, you know, money wasn't as widespread, you know, and maybe like see what people in small towns were doing for art or something like that, you know? Like they
Mhm.
probably weren't concerned with making a personal brand, you know? There was just like you'd have a local guy who was, you know, probably a blacksmith by day, but then really good at guitar, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he would sing in maybe five different, who knows, like I'm just guessing, but maybe he would sing in five or six different styles, you know? Or even like the traveling bard, right? The people that would take their show on the road. It's
Mhm.
like they, for the, you know, entertainment of the different, you know, small towns in the French countryside or whatever in the 1600s, like those people probably weren't concerned with branding themselves because the people were just so thrilled to have some
Mhm.
entertainment. And so the guy
Mhm.
would probably try out something in this town and then try something new in the next town, just whatever stroked his fancy, you know?
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
I
that's a
don't
good
know,
point.
but maybe it's not true. I'm just wondering
Yeah.
because it's like we've only been alive in this age. That's our only comparison.
Yeah.
Because even in the Renaissance, it was like these painters, like, you know, I don't know, Da Vinci, but those guys, like that era of painters, like they were sponsored by these rich
Commission.
families. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rich families wanted what they wanted. So,
Portrait.
Yeah.
Usually it was portraits, you know.
Yeah, exactly. There's
yeah.
portraits, but then if you like go to the museum, that's why it's very interesting. Like that's why I say it's a narrative, because I don't believe that even those big painters, like you can look at their work. It's like you're not going to find just one artist that created the same type of piece their whole life. Like even if you look back at their old work, it was different than what we know them for, you know?
Right.
So like even like Da Vinci, like you said, like he has his own side projects that he does, but he also does like portraits or whatever, you know, like that he was commissioned for.
That's a good point. He actually followed his passions all around the place because he was designing, you know, stuff that didn't even exist. He was an inventor. He was
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like another thought is like you're creating, if you really want to be even more like strict, let's say you want to even keep it more strict, then paint a flower, only that yellow flower, 1,000,000,000 times until you die, just that yellow flower, and just paint it, stick to that, don't change a thing, don't paint landscapes or other things, you know, just paint to that. Let's see if somebody can stick to that. I want to see somebody doing that. Paint a yellow flower for for the rest of your life.
Why would you want to see that?
I'm just saying that's like limiting, that's like even more hardcore.
Right. You're saying like, why not take it to his extreme if you're
more,
going to think that
take
way?
it more extreme, you know?
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, but it's like, well, okay, so actually, yeah, and let me try to argue from the other side, you know.
Yeah.
So like what I would say, because I agree, I think you have a great point, but I think that most things in life are not one or the other, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I would say the argument for the other side is that number one, you're gonna have tendencies, right? So like as you develop, you're gonna have like certain things that you get comfortable with, or that, and so just naturally, without even thinking, you're gonna do some things that look similar, you know. It's the same way that like, I don't know, I'm trying to think. If you watch like a Coen Brothers movie, like I've only seen a few other movies, but like they fall back on common themes. Like all of their movies have like bad things happening to people, you know, for no reason.
Wait,
like,
is that the guys that made Stranger Things?
No. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? What's it called? The Big Lebowski. You know, it's usually like random decent people and there's like horrible stuff happening to them. And that's kind of like a theme. Or if you like, for example, you look at like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a singer, like singers tend to come back to the same themes over and over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you listen to Kanye West, a lot of his songs are like inspired by his frustrations with women in his life, you know, and
or Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I thought of her immediately because she's always singing about her love life, guys that were like jerks to her apparently.
Exactly. And it's like, and we can make fun, but it's like that's their muse. And so the same thing as like a visual artist, you're gonna have your muse and you're gonna have your technique. You're gonna have your
Would you say that you're like Ye's muse?
That's it. Yeah,
I just thought of that.
Do yourself a favor, anyone listening. If you haven't listened to that podcast, don't listen to it. It's I lost some brain cells.
Yeah, a little. I mean, maybe.
Uncut gems.
There you go.
Anyway, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's probably for the best.
I kind of don't know, so just to make you feel better.
Anyway, but yeah, so that to bring it back, it was what I was saying is that like we all have our tendencies, we all have the things that we're drawn towards, and our not just our muses, but our techniques, and what we're comfortable with. And so it is kind of natural that a style will emerge, you know, like there are certain things in Felix's paintings that maybe he's not even aware of that I see as an outsider.
What do you see?
That's like, oh, that's a Felix tendency.
What do you see? I'm curious.
There's like, I mean, for one, there's he likes texture a lot. I can tell that much, you know. There's always like these little, I don't know how to say it, like, well, the blending is one thing, right? But there's always something in his paintings that's a little bit rough, like not an ugly rough, but just like the clouds, you know, or like some rocks in the foreground that'll have these little brush strokes, like, you know. It's always these little kind of circular textural motions. And yeah, I don't know. He likes, you know, obviously it's in the name. He likes color a lot. So that's like there's never, no matter how different your paintings are, there's usually some element of blending that creeps in, some like color gradient, you know?
So I guess he does kind of have a style.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say like, I mean, I could look at something like, even your recent paintings of like people, I could look at those and say that's Felix,
Interesting.
Those
even
weird
even though
guys.
I've never seen you paint that before. Yeah, I could
Yeah.
probably look at the way that you painted it and just intuitively know that that was your work,
See, like I can't tell. Like I wouldn't be able to tell. That's the weird thing.
Yeah.
But like actually hearing it from you is interesting too.
Yes. Ooh, that's interesting. I
Yeah,
think
so it's
it's
like a style will
interesting that
come.
like, yeah, I think it's almost like why I'm so interested is because I realized the connection between what we were talking about on part 1 and now part 2, because in part 1 we were saying that like people are going to come to your social media because of how your personality shines through and your uniqueness basically. And it's the same thing with your art, like whether or not you have a defined style, like just being yourself and what comes naturally to you, I think that's going to shine through no matter what the subject is that you're painting.
Yeah, so maybe that's the big answer is don't think too
Yes.
much about it. Just do it a lot.
That's a
Yes,
good one.
exactly.
There you go, guys.
That's so good.
We had to talk all this
Yeah.
talk
Just
to get to this.
that
Well,
point.
here, let me grab something real quick. We're not going to edit this out because it's right there. But turn down your computer audio just a little bit because I can hear myself coming out of your speaker. But I want to show you something, a comic book, an example of style, right?
Okay. Let's see what he's going to show us. And he's
so
back.
This will be for anybody watching, but I will also describe it. So we can see, so this is Osamu Tezuka. And I don't know, there's no way I can pronounce it but check it out. So this guy, he's got this very clean style, right? It's almost very Disney because I think he was inspired by Walt Disney's early work. And he's known as like the Walt Disney of Japan. Like he's just done a ton of really classic stories. And actually, I think The Lion King was kind of like lifted from his story.
Probably.
Yeah, I think you wrote one called Kimba, the White Lion.
Oh my
like,
god.
Oh, I wonder where they got Simba from.
Kimba.
Yeah, like literally. But like, look at that. See, so his style, even when there's like a sword fight happening, it's like it's very fluid and very clean. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of line economy, right? Like he doesn't do any lines out of place. Like he only draws what he needs to, and everything's very smooth and almost very childish, right? Not childish, but childlike, like very innocent, even though it's things like bloodshed and sword fighting, like with samurai, it's done in this very like almost childlike way. Now, on the other hand, this is called Die Dark, this series, and it's like science fiction, but also kind of like horror. And I'm not going to show any like really bad pages, but it's very dark, right? It's in the title. And this is by Q Hayashida, but you can see, look at the lines and how scraggly they are and how different that is. It's like totally different vibe, right?
But that's the same artist, right?
No, different artist. And this woman, she's like the artist is very sketchy on the edges, right? Like the other guy, he only draws these very smooth lines. Yeah. But this one, it's like you can see all these little hatchings and edges, and it's very rough. And I think that that's so cool, and it fits the tones of the story. And it's almost like maybe these people went in and they thought about that and they planned ahead, and they're like, how do I develop this style? But to me, it almost seems like it fits the tone of the story they want to tell. Like Tezuka's work is very wholesome at the end of the day, and very Disney-like, And so those smooth lines kind of help to make it for everybody, Whereas this author is distinctly writing for people who like kind of darker, edgier stories that are kind of, there's this dark humor to them.
Yeah.
And so it fits with that kind of tone, it's rough around the edges. Anyway. So
that's super interesting.
I feel like they're just being true to themselves, but by being true to themselves, the style just kind of follows.
Shines through.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to let go of that thought of like finding that thing. You have to find your style immediately and get to work and create a body of work or a theme or whatever. You have to kind of let go of that. That's what I've learned. I've learned to kind of let go of that and let the feeling naturally just whatever that, like I said, whatever that little spark, it could be a little spark, that ignites something where you're sketching. I've been sketching lately more than ever. I haven't really sketched when I was, starting out. I just went straight to canvas, but now I kind of went back to a sketchbook and drawing out my ideas first, stepping away from like the references, like photo references and stuff like that, and more of just my imagination and sketching and kind of laying it down on there. And then I just use that rough sketch, and then put it onto the canvas and go
it
from
looks
there.
so cool. Like these are some of my favorite pieces that Felix has ever done, because I feel like honestly it's like he's finding his style and letting it shine out even more. And so it's like very interesting to see now that he doesn't have the reference or to like look at, his style is like shining through more, I think.
That's really cool because it's coming direct from your brain to the canvas.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
like,
it's fun that way. And
you're not putting as many barriers in between your original impulse and inspiration and the final work.
Yeah. And also like, I was like, in a way, I feel like a lot of artists can maybe relate, is when you start, like, I used to paint a lot from references, and practice that way. But it was actually an accident. So what happened was, I'm staying at my brother's place, and they don't have a printer, like their printer is broken or whatever. And so sometimes I would use a reference that I'm inspired by, and kind of, paint from it, and not all the time, but most of the time I'll do that. But they don't have this. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to just sketch ideas and challenge myself to, like, I want to make it easier. I feel like people, like, when you're creating, you want to find an easier way to do this, and I think that could be a little problem sometimes. You have to, it's actually challenge yourself to just sketch, and then it will naturally, your way of creating will come out, the way it was kind of hidden there, but you're not letting it out because of these easy things, access to the way of creating, and you, and the thing that's in you that's trying to come out, you're not letting it out, so like,
that's smart. Yeah.
For me it was like the printer, or like just kind of looking at
You
pictures.
need something to kind of jar you out of your routine, so that
And challenge.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, that's artists actually thrive on challenges, and that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, it's like, do you really want an easy life? It's like, no. There's actually something I've heard. It's like, is that people are happiest not when they have an easy life, but when they have challenges that mean something to them. Because if you have challenges that don't mean something to you, then that's the position that a lot of us are in, where it's like, as modern individuals, it's like, oh, you're working for a boss that you hate. You're making money for your boss's dreams. Of course, you're not going to like that kind of challenge. But if it's a challenge that means something to you, whether that is like educating people about a social justice issue or just making paintings, you're going to put in the energy, and you're going to enjoy putting in the energy. It's like, you don't want to sit on your butt all day and eat candy.
Because that's fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not fulfilling. We've all done. Can you hear the dogs barking, or should I keep talking? Okay, good. Because we've all done that thing where we like maybe sit around on a day off and watch too much TV, and like by the end of that, you just feel terrible. You're like not even enjoying yourself anymore. And it's because you didn't earn it. It's like our bodies, like, we like to earn it. We like to do work that means something to us.
Totally.
Yeah, 100%. This is good. Hopefully it encourages you guys, because it's like a daily, it's like still happens to this day. It's not like we made it and everything's great.
And it's actually, that's what keeps us going, is the challenge, because it's like, if we were just to like make it, it's like, what's the point of that, and that's like what Gary Vee always says.
Yeah.
It's
well,
all about
go ahead.
It's all about the like, what does he say? It's all about the game or something. Like, you gotta love the game.
I love losing because that's just how much I love the game. If I had to start over tomorrow with 0, I would be happy. I would be grateful because I love the game that much.
You gotta love the game.
But so I think that's right. And I think it's also true because if you go to like all these big cities, whether it's like, I guarantee you, London, Dubai, New York, Los Angeles, whatever, Tokyo, I guarantee you all these places are chock full of rich people who have made it and then stopped working and are just miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Guarantee it. Like, and I know some of these people secondhand, not
Mhm.
personally, but I've heard stories of people who've worked with these people and they're like, yeah, they're just so bored. They're, looking for drama and meaning in these pointless things. It's like, whatever. We see it on TV and reality shows, right? All these
Mhm.
reality shows about rich people, and they fill their days up with drama because they need something to like give them excitement because they're not on a mission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mission.
Yeah,
What's your mission?
My mission?
Mm-hmm.
My mission is to get people to consume more responsibly, because I think that we are. So that's the secret mission. Actually, it's not secret because I talk about it.
Secret.
But like my secret mission on TikTok is that I realized that if you care about something, you need to make it cool. And so me just coming out and saying, hey guys, it's bad to buy a bunch of clothes and try to keep up with trends because you're contributing to a wasteful industry and these clothes end up in landfills, blah, blah. Like that's boring, right? That's not going to get people to care. But if I show people some cool outfits I'm wearing, or I talk about other people's cool outfits, and I'd be like, hey, this is how you can do this without spending a lot of money and buying all these clothes secondhand, or most of these clothes secondhand or whatever. And this is how you can build towards a wardrobe that you enjoy versus having to keep up with what's cool, And by the way, by having all this fun, you'll actually be helping out the planet. Then you get to tell them your mission. And so that's my mission, is like, I hate, the fact that I hate that climate change is happening. I hate that the way that we do business is contributing to that. I want to see a clean world. I want to see happier people that don't have to work so hard, And so I think that my small way to contribute to that, I'm not going to change the world by myself, but my small little way to contribute to that is getting people to buy less new stuff,
That's good. And I asked you because I think that it's something else that I always tell artists getting started with business is like, you need to know your mission before you start, because if you don't know your mission, you're going to be going off in all these different directions. And on top of that, I don't think it's enough to just be an artist or be a creative or whatever it is these days, because people want to support a mission, they want to know that there's
That's
like
smart.
something that you are supporting, and by supporting you, they're supporting something. People want to be a part of something. So I think it's really important to have a mission from the beginning. So I think that the fact that you have that is really good.
Yeah.
Our mission is to support artists, to provide work for artists, opportunity for artists, and to support artists from like the beginning of their career, like as an artist, and to the end of like starting of having their art business and finding success with art. We also are like encouraging creativity through sharing lessons and paintings and inspiring others to get creative. So that's our mission.
Yeah, and I think you guys are doing that, and I'm not just trying to kiss your butt here, because I think that like it's pretty obvious that the way that you guys do things empowers. Like, I know that the people that you bring on for your tutorials, like you pay them, you give them exposure to your audience. And yeah, I think, for the beginners, you give them all, free tutorials, and then people can go buy some more if they want some more, but it's like, you're still giving away so much free stuff. And so I think that you find something that you care about, and then you pursue that noble cause, and look how many people get helped in the process,
And another thing is like, the things that are most successful are usually problems that you started with. So like, you think of yourself, like where you were and the things that you've done to help yourself. There's people that are still in the position that you were in when you started that need your help.
That's so wise. Right there. That is like, we got to clip that, because that is like, look at your own life. Like, if you're thinking, what do people need? What can I put out in the world? All you got to do is look, what did I want to know, 5 years ago?
Totally.
Yeah, that I know now, or whatever. That's smart. That's really smart.
Yeah, that's some good value there.
Or even with you, Felix, it's like, what did you, it's like, what are you providing people? You're giving them the encouragement that you maybe didn't know where to find when you were younger, you know? It's like,
Mhm.
and again, I'm like, I don't want to dog on Felix's family or anything like that, but it's just like the idea that you were a young artist and you didn't really have like a lot of people in your life encouraging you to make the art. Now you get to be
Mhm.
that guy for other people, you know? Felix's
Or
family is
even
lovely, by the way. I just am like,
or
yeah,
even show people like I know at that time for us there was no one doing what we were doing. There was no one like having an art business, and then also there was no one really that we knew that was an artist. Like I remember my mom, like, and I don't want to dog on anyone here but because
yeah.
now she's very supportive, but I remember at the beginning, and I've
After the
told her,
success, I'm
yeah,
kidding.
yeah, I've I've talked to her about this before, so I know it's not a big deal if I share. But she was like, in the beginning, I remember her specifically telling me, "How many artists do you know that are making a living?" You know, and in that moment, I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's no way this is ever going to be possible." You know, like I felt so discouraged, but
Yeah,
because it's true, like at that time there was no one that I knew making a living as an artist.
right.
And but it kind of like actually encouraged me to work harder and to be that person. And like now that we are, like I want to be that support for people that don't have that example. And that's what Felix is to so many artists. He's
Right.
showing artists that it's possible.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, like I've shared this before. We started from nothing. I mean, when my parents moved here from Russia, Ukraine, you know, like we lived in apartments. We had some at one point. Me and Andrea were on food stamps. We were like literally from nothing. And this is my second language. You know, if I can do it, you know, coming from a different, and you know, I'm not American, and I can make a success here as an artist. I think anyone can do it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
There's no excuse. It's like I think what Andrea said. It's like she put that. She's like, oh man. Instead of thinking like, oh yeah, there's not many. What are the percentage of people, artists that are making a living? Maybe we shouldn't do this. Instead of dwelling on that thought, she's like, something clicked in her brain, and she said, no. Instead of thinking that, I'm gonna actually work harder. And because she put in the effort and worked harder, and
And
said,
just because you don't see something,
yeah.
it doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means that you can be that thing.
Right. Yeah. That's smart.
Mhm.
Wow. And then that applies in like in my case, like I didn't want to choose between music and fiction and even a little bit of clothes, right? And it's like my goal now in life is to prove to myself that I can do all three, you know?
Exactly.
And
Mhm.
just because a lot of people in the past have said no, you got to pick one thing to focus on, it's like maybe I don't, you know,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I can be the guy that proves it. And
Exactly.
I mean, yeah. And but here's what I would say too, Felix, what you were saying a second ago about like if you can do it, anybody can do it. Is like a lot of people, like we all struggle, you know? And so and our struggles are all unique, right? And so don't hold that struggle back, because in sharing that struggle, that's how you relate to other people. And that's why your story is relevant. And that's why like you shouldn't stop yourself and say like, oh, there's already 10 or 20 amazing people talking about this thing that I'm passionate about. Why would I want to talk about it? You know, it's like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
no, not everybody can relate to Tony Robbins and his shiny teeth and his perfect skin. You know, it's like sometimes sometimes you need somebody a little lower on the totem pole that you can relate to. And that's why
Mhm.
it will always be relevant to put your voice out there and talk about your struggles or your insecurity, or just be honest with the fact that you're not there yet, you
Mhm.
know?
That's
Like
good.
Totally.
I don't try to be the fashion master when I go on TikTok. Like I literally just say, "Hey, I'm a guy who likes clothes," you know, and there are way more people out there who are way smarter about clothes than me. But
Yeah.
it's like I've found my audience because they like the way that I'm honest about where I'm at, you know?
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
so good. That's so good. Yeah, I think that's important to not be afraid of.
And you're an amazing painter, by the way, but it's like
Thank you.
if I had to say like who's number one in the world, I don't think you'd get offended if I didn't say it was you, you know?
No,
Just
no,
same way that I'm not the number one
Plus,
musician
it's
in the
like,
world.
how can you even really determine who's number one?
Exactly. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
You know?
I follow many artists right now. Even I look at their art, and they're way better than me. That's my point. Like the way I think. You know, I'm sharing, and I look at their. I'm like, man, they're so good. They're so skilled. You know, in what they're doing. They're way better than
The
me.
key is in what they're doing.
Mhm.
So everyone is doing something differently. So that's why I say, like, you can't say, oh, this person's number one, oh, this person's number one. It's all like
Yeah,
everyone's
it's all
opinion.
subjective. That's true.
Yeah.
I think
So
even with music, like the music community is so into ratings for albums, but it's
Mm.
like there are so many albums out there that have gotten bad ratings that I've loved, you know, it's like 'cause it
Mhm.
means something different to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So is there any other questions that
There
came up?
are, yeah, we went
Okay.
on a lot of wild tangents
I
on that
feel
one.
like we've been talking on this one.
Imagine all this talk and we never answered the question.
Yeah. No, we definitely answered that one. So that was about
No, we did.
discovering your
Style.
style. And I think we can hit one more judging
Okay.
in time here.
Yeah.
So this is a good one. Okay. She says, this is from Anne. And she says, do you sometimes feel stuck creatively? And how do you cope with this state?
Mhm. This is a common question. I kind of answered it a little bit earlier with the way I'm getting back to my sketchbook and sketching out my ideas. I don't have access to the printer, right now.
Do you
And
ever feel like um like do you always have ideas flowing, or do you ever like feel stuck?
I feel stuck pretty most of the time, honestly. I get down to my sketchbook. I have no clue what I'm gonna paint next. No idea. And I'm like, I just make that little push of like just getting a pencil and eraser and just kind of starting there. And then what I do is I turn on like music and kind of prepare myself to like easy things that I do, just turn on music and get to sketching, and then that gives me that, like I start drawing things, erasing a lot, drawing things, and then I'm like, oh, whoa, that is interesting looking. I'm gonna work on that and see what I can add there, and erasing, kind of create from that little line and make something out of it, and then from there something happens. But a lot of the times I go in, like, it's rare that I'm very inspired. Like Andrea could name those days where I'm like very inspired after like a gallery or a place I've visited, and then I'm like, I have to go home. I really want to paint, right? They happen a few times like that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
sometimes we'll be out walking or something, and he's like, or like maybe sometimes we listen to a podcast or something. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm so inspired. I want to go create.
Yeah, it would happen, but it's more, I would say, more of the time it's, I don't have like a specific idea or like that, like
Inspiration strike.
yeah, and that strike, you kind of have to make your body wants everything easy, flesh likes it all comfortable, chill, Netflix and chill, all that stuff. That's what your flesh wants. So you have to kind of fight that every day, in a way.
It's
Yeah.
like almost it's like the difference between motivation or like inspiration and discipline. So like it's like how people always say like, oh, motivation is a feeling. Inspiration is like a feeling. It's a feeling, but it comes and goes. But the thing that's gonna like determine your consistency is the discipline. So it's like even when you're not inspired, you're
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm not inspired or I'm not motivated, but I'm still gonna sit down and sketch for the next 30 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to come up with the idea. Like, so if you, that's what I would say too, is like, if it was me, I would, musically, that could mean just playing some cover songs, like go online and look up some chords and play other people's songs. And maybe like, as you play them, you'll put your own little spin on it,
Mhm.
or if you're a visual artist, get your sketchbook and then instead of trying to make yourself come up with something, just go, grab an apple to do a still
Mhm.
life, or open up a sketch, like an art book, and do a
Mhm.
lesson out of that book, or a lesson from YouTube or whatever.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
just
Yeah,
And
that's a
put
good.
your own spin on it.
yeah, and don't rely on yourself to come up with it from the ground up. Just
Yeah.
Exactly.
go
Yeah.
copy something and see what happens.
Yeah, because also like for Felix, he's been painting for like 17 years now. So like, and he's just getting to the point where like he's not looking at references at all. So like, but that takes time and it takes practice. And So don't be like discouraged or like hard on yourself if you're like, man, I don't have any good ideas because like I have to use a reference photo, you know, like
Right.
Felix used a reference photo for most of his career.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that too. There's no rules or laws saying that artists should never use reference photos, you know. So like you could still use it. Like if I'm inspired, I'll use it tomorrow, you know, whatever. Like if like I'll still use it. But I'm just like at the point where I feel like I'm trying to challenge myself, push myself a little bit more, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And to keep it more exciting and fun. But um on other ways where I was inspired to create was going to, you know, like you said, reading books,
Mm-hmm.
art books, or like going to galleries or museums. Those every time I would go to museums, I would get excited, you know, because I would see it in person, the art, and it's so much different than seeing everything online, you know, like it's so different. It's crazy how that's becoming rare, you know, for
Yeah,
like people to get out.
that's a good point. Yeah, it's a lot more immediate when you see something in real life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like after that, I would be like have something where I don't know what yet, but I'm like excited, you know, to just get my stuff out.
Mhm.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
And then I think we can do one more real quick one
Okay,
because
sure.
this one was emailed to me a while ago, and I was going to use it on the next pod before we knew we were doing a questions pod. So this is from Guardian Arts, and they say, "Hey guys, love listening to your podcast. My question is, if you could be a master of any medium, what would it be and why?" A little lighter question.
That's Jen. I know Jen.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Jen. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. That's so
For
for
all of
me, for all
us,
of us,
or
or
what?
I mean, I guess yeah, all of us, but
I
like I
always
think they probably wanted to know for Felix, but yeah.
Okay, well,
No, let's all do it. Why not?
let's do it for all of us. It'll be
yeah,
more fun, I feel like. And then we will end. So I always tell Felix that for me, like, I would hate to be like a detailed artist. Like, I know that I would have to do something like abstract or like a paint pour type of artist, something like that for me, just because like I don't like details. So, like, sitting down at the canvas and painting for hours sounds like so boring for me. So, I would
That's
really,
ironic because sitting down at my computer and like answering emails and making ads for hours sounds like too many
yeah,
details to me. Like for you to say you don't like details but be able to do that stuff, that's crazy to me.
yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. That's so weird, but like I love to do what I do. So, like for me, it would just be like paint pours, like making designs with like paint, I guess.
Yeah, something that's just more like
That's a good.
expressive and
Free
loose.
flowing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Or like well, no, resin is a lot of details, as we
Yeah.
learned from
Something like
Carolyn.
resin.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Like for me, I mean, I'm still working with acrylics. I haven't thought about like I guess another medium would
Like if
be
you didn't have to,
oils.
okay, cool.
Like
Yeah,
I'd
like if you
play
didn't have
with
to invest the
oils.
time.
Yeah, I'd play with oils. I've experimented with them, but I'd get like try to work with that a little more than
Mhm.
usual. And then also maybe do some sculpture stuff, you know, 3D stuff. That'd be kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I cannot say like I want to just stick to one thing. Maybe in the
Yeah.
future I'll do it, you know.
Felix.
Oh, another thing is music. I really want to do music.
Oh
And you're
yeah.
gonna help me set up probably the studio
Yeah.
because that's my next. I keep telling Andrea,
Yeah, he's super excited.
I just want to make like chill, just like
Felix
background music.
loves to make music, like guitar, everything.
Yeah, so that's another big thing. Actually, music was my first passion before art. Like I wanted to make music as my career. Kind of like how you started with your music, you know, where you still have it, and I've always
Mhm.
still had it in me, but art picked up first, you know, which surprised me because I thought
Yeah, that's interesting.
but anyway, yeah.
How about you, Sebastian?
Well, yeah, and I think that you're at a place now with your success where you can start thinking about how you could clean up more time in your schedule for
Mhm.
music, you know?
Mhm.
Because that's
Yeah.
kind of my goal is like with this TikTok stuff and this fashion stuff is like I want to use that as I feel like that's the most monetizable thing that I like.
Mhm.
So it might not be my number one. It's probably like my number 2 or 3 passion, but it's like it's the most monetizable. So I decided to lean on that because it will free up more time in my day to then focus on some other stuff.
It'll give you the freedom to create.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
A course by Andrea Kaparchuk. So yeah, if I could be a master of any medium without having to put in the time, I would say probably drawing.
I knew it. I was gonna say pencil.
And inks, yeah, because
Yeah.
I want to be able to make like manga or like comics
Wow, that's
out
cool.
of my stories. The problem is that like I just don't know where I'm gonna have the time to like go take art classes. Like I would love to be able to do that because a lot of these manga writer, like it's kind of the tradition in Japan to do the writing and the art yourself.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
in America it's a little bit different the way we do comics. There's usually like a
Artist
penciler
and a
and an
writer.
ink, like yeah, and multiple artists, like a penciler, an inker, a letterer. It's like, you know, whatever. And yeah, I think it's kind of cool how they do it over there. It was just like one person's pure imagination.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's cool.
And so I would love to be that kind of all around writer artist because I already have the writing part down pretty well, I think. But
Mhm.
it's just so much time to get that skill set. So
This is an interesting question that she asked because
yeah.
like all of our answers are different, you know, like the what we're doing now is still not like is different than what we want to do. Like we have these goals, right? And I feel like every level of artist, no matter if you're successful or not, I feel like is always going to have a different thing, you know, like
That's actually really true.
Mhm.
Yeah. I remember reading that somewhere that like this person who had climbed Mount Everest was jealous of this person who was a
yeah.
scientist or whatever, and they always felt inadequate or something. It's like we don't necessarily appreciate the things that come naturally to us, and we're like always looking at other things. But I think
Mhm.
that's kind of healthy, is like to be a
Yes.
student and to learn new things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's cool. Well, thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. We had a lot of fun answering these, and I'm sure we'll probably do another episode like this in the future.
Yeah. So if you didn't get your question answered, we saw a lot of good ones, and you know, just can't get to them all. So we'll hang on to those for next time.
Totally. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to our 2-part series. If you haven't heard the first episode, be sure to go back and listen. We have some really good nuggets of info for you in there.
Yeah, that'll be episode 20.
Okay, cool. And we hope to see you guys next week. If you enjoyed this, if you got anything of value out of this podcast, be sure to leave a review wherever you're listening. It would really help promote the podcast to other people, other artists who want to also get value out of these podcasts. So be sure to leave a review and hope to see you guys next week.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.